great thing about this is that it's also, as you mentioned before, extremely versatile. It can have everything from, an i3 12th gen Intel CPU all the way up to an i9 14th gen. So
hello, engineers, developers, and embedded computing professionals of all stripes. Welcome to another edition of Embedded Toolbox. I'm Ken Briota, Senior Technology Editor at Embedded Computing Design, and your host. Before we get going, please remember to like this video and subscribe if you're watching it on YouTube right now, so you don't miss any of your great shows that we're putting out for you, like Embedded Toolbox. I'm delighted to be joined today by Jason Waldman, Associate Director of Embedded Business Development at Advantech. And Jason's going to give us an insider's look at the Advantech AFE-R770. Welcome to the show, Jason. Thanks for joining me.
thanks for having me, Ken. Really appreciate the time.
Pleasure is going to be entirely my listeners, because they don't have to listen to me very much. Before we get into the processor itself, can you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what Advantech does?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm the Associate Director for Embedded Business Development. I got responsibility across a wide range, including product development. Also work a lot with our ecosystem partners like Intel, AMD, NVIDIA, all the big guys out there. And then, as far as Advantech goes, we're globally the world's largest IPC company, industrial personal computer company. So we hit basically every single market you can possibly think of. We're extremely strong in medical. And also, we're very strong in industrial robotics, which is what we're going to be talking about a little bit today here.
Awesome. That's really cool. We're so happy to have you. I know we're going to be talking about the AFER770 today. It's powerful, versatile embedded processor designed specifically for robotics and autonomous functions. But folks out here aren't here to listen to me talk. I'm going to hand you the microphone, and you can tell us all about it.
Yeah, sure. Appreciate that. So one of the things at Advantech we've been looking at is this AMR, autonomous mobile robotics space, and figuring out ways that we can essentially make it easier for people to develop, get into, and get up and running as quickly as they possibly can. So what we have here, and what I have in my hands, this little beast here, is our AFE-R770. It's actually a full-size computer that comes complete with essentially everything needed to run an AMR robot. And you can't tell here, it's small, but this thing is extremely rugged. You can tell that it's pretty heavy. This is actually going to be my workout for the day. But it's extremely ruggedized. You can see it's got the heatsink on top, so it does work well from an extreme temperature standpoint. The other cool thing about this is essentially it's got every single port that you could possibly need. So you can see on the front here all the different Ethernet ports, the USBs. It's also got a fan port if you want additional cooling in case you're in a really extreme environment, HDMI, and then a DIO port. And on the back, one of the things that our customers have told us is that CAN bus is extremely important. So I think from this standpoint, this is one of the things that really differentiates us, is we recognize that CAN bus is becoming or is still important within this space. It's not just for automotive. So we make sure that we have that as well. So the great thing about this is that it's also, as you mentioned before, extremely versatile. It can have everything from, an i3 12th gen Intel CPU all the way up to an i9 14th gen. So really fits the entire spectrum of performance. Has the ability to be adapted with, different levels of RAM. We actually can even do a lot of custom work on this, customize the IO port. So if there's something specific that customers want or don't want, we have the ability to change all that, change the entire coastline for this. But basically, this guy just sits right into the robot. You can even see actually on the back here that there is an LED and a remote port as well. So you can actually, control this thing via remote. So extremely versatile piece of hardware, and something that we're going to be rolling out here in the fall timeframe, because, we view this as being really a critical piece to enabling faster development, faster deployment, faster, essentially everything within the AMR space. So again, really cool technology, all based on Advantech boards and hardware. We manufacture our own, so we know essentially this machinery inside and out. Also have all the different peripherals that anybody could ever want for this, cameras, sensors, et cetera, to make sure the robot works properly and does everything it's supposed to do.
So can you give us a little more insight into the nuts and bolts, especially from a processing point of view? Obviously, talking about robotics, people are going to ask and want to know about autonomy. That
Mhm.
is obviously processor heavy, but there's a lot of other pieces in that. Can you tell us a little bit about the capabilities there?
Yeah, so the capabilities really, as I mentioned before, it's pretty wide. You can go everywhere from a lower power envelope with an i3 at the 12th gen level, all the way up to the much more powerful i9 at the 14th gen level. That enables a pretty wide variety of different applications. Everything from the simple, call them the spider robots, who just go back and forth between lines, to the ones that can go and pick things off the shelves, all the way up to even humanoid robots. And so for something like that, you definitely need additional power. You need additional processing capability. From a standpoint of just the amount of memory, I mean, it's extremely versatile with DDR5 memory. So something that for sure we make sure is customers have the ability to customize. You actually could, even if you wanted to, and take the cover off this, and if you need to expand it, that allows you to do that. So very versatile. One of the cool things about this is, while obviously we have our base specs for things, where we specialize is in providing essentially custom solutions. And so um, what you see on our website or what you see in the data sheet is just essentially just the surface of what we can do. There's a lot of other things that we can work into this, and within other systems as well. I mean, we obviously are a partner with NVIDIA, so we have GPUs. We also have the ability to put things like capture cards and FPGAs in if necessary, into machines, not just this one, but other ones as well. So, there's just a wide variety of different solutions that we can provide to people. We like to say that, if you can think it, we probably can build it. Within the computer space, I don't want to get into anything like buildings or anything like that, but we do have the ability to essentially provide custom design hardware. And also, the other cool thing too is, it's not just the hardware that's the big deal, it's also the software. We do a lot of firmware, custom firmware. We do, custom BIOS work. If a customer gives us their software image, we can actually load it on, make sure everything works properly. We work directly with, companies like Microsoft, Canonical, Red Hat, to provide that as well. So, from that standpoint, what we're able to do really is provide a full custom system to customers. This really just starts as the baseline, but there's way more that we can do even beyond this. So I think it's just great for your listeners to see, everything Advantech can offer, because we like to say we're the brand behind the brand. Not everybody knows our name, but pretty much everybody at some point in their life has probably used our product without even knowing it.
That's awesome. What about in terms of obviously we've talked a little bit about robotics and some of the applications there. I'm sure in your testing you've been trying a bunch of different sort of applications types as you've been running through development and things. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the stuff that you've been working on from application side, and even outside of robotics? I mean, obviously automation does touch on a lot of different areas
Mhm.
beyond traditional robotics. How applicable are we talking there?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the cool things we do, I mentioned earlier that we're very big in the medical space. One of the things that we have found you actually can use something like this for is also within the medical field of just transporting things via robot from room to room, from a pharmacy to a hospital room, et cetera. So it saves time. It allows people to it frees people up to do other things other than just push a cart around.
Hmm.
So that's part of it. You talk about things as we start looking into, even mission critical applications like military, with some of the robotics there. We've looked into applications for that as well. So to your point, it's not just about, what goes on in a warehouse or a factory. You also have one of the other areas we're looking into as well that I think, some of your listeners may find kind of interesting is agricultural technology, automating farming so that you can essentially run practically 24/7 at a farm without, the farmer having to get up at the crack of dawn to manage everything. So that's one of the other things that we're looking at that we're heavily involved in is how can we essentially leverage these robots, leverage the development and leverage everything else so that we can essentially help everybody run more efficiently. It's not to say that we want to replace humans with robots, but in some applications, let's face it, robots are going to be more efficient, less mistake prone, less accident prone, and especially in dangerous jobs such as in agricultural technology, having a robot out there, essentially doing some of the work might actually be beneficial to people in terms of just accident prevention, things like that. So we're looking at this from a wide variety of applications. It's not just about the warehouse. That we honestly believe that something like this, and it's has a sister board level product, the AFER770, that is going to allow people to just continue to develop robots in different applications where either it's tough to find labor or it's just one of those areas where the labor may not be as efficient as it possibly can be.
Yeah, and I mean, agriculture is sort of a favorite vertical of mine. I love sort of seeing how we're able to make that process more efficient, make farmers' work and lives a little better. So that's always interesting to me. And you mentioned the sort of idea of dangerous situations. Obviously, that's peak application for robotics. I think is keeping humans out of danger. And you mentioned earlier the ruggedization stuff. Can you give us a little more details on that and sort of how, what kind of temperature ranges we're talking about, and vibration and all those other kinds of ruggedization pieces that our engineers are constantly struggling to overcome?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the biggest things is in a lot of these environments in which the robots are working, either they're extreme environments in which you're dealing with temperatures between, -20 to 65 degrees, or you're dealing with areas where there's not a lot of good air circulation. So as part of that, one of the things, this is the heat sink that we put on top of this. You can see that this obviously is a pretty heavy duty one. We actually can even go bigger on the heat sink if necessary to help, really dissipate the heat more rapidly. So that's one thing that we do. But yeah, in general, this thing is rated, -20 to about 65 degrees C. As I mentioned earlier, there's actually a spot in here too. You can actually plug in a fan as well to increase the cooling capacity, so that assists even more. And then in general, just from a shock and vibe standpoint, we try and make it so that it hits all the different specs that are needed for, particularly vehicles, where, there's going to be obviously a lot of jarring as the movement happens. So you want to make sure that the system is secure, that it's not going to, nothing's going to rattle out of place or anything like that. So we test to all the different specs out there. We have all the military specs. We do a lot of our testing in-house as well. So that enables us to, as we see things maybe not working as well as they should, we are able to adjust on the fly and make sure that we make the changes necessary so that we can provide essentially a very consistent experience for people where once this thing goes out in the field, they can essentially deploy it and then not have to worry about if it's going to get jarred loose at some point if it hits like a rock or something as it moves through, or bumps into a shelf. So we do the best we can to essentially make this thing as rugged as possible. There's additional options that we can do as well. Things like soldering down the memory within some of our other products, soldering down the modules, et cetera, that enable us to really make these things extremely rugged. So, again, it just comes down to if there are specific requirements that your engineers may have that they're having trouble talking through, come talk to us about it. We have a team actually in Irvine, California, where I'm based, that our engineering and development center that loves challenges like that. That's what gets them up in the morning and what keeps them there late at night. So they enjoy just the challenge of somebody coming to us saying, "Hey, I can't seem to find a solution for this. What can you guys do?" And at Advantech, we do the best that we can to help pretty much everybody solve their problems.
Shocking to hear that there's a group of engineers out there that absolutely love being handed a problem to solve. Um, you've hinted around a couple of other robotics related products. Can you tell us a little bit about other robotics specific products that you guys are working on or have out there in the market already?
Yeah, so the AFER770 I mentioned earlier, it is, this being obviously a system level, we also have a board level product for somebody if they, have their own system or have a space limitation where they want to just have the board available for it. Again, same principle. We can customize it, do whatever's necessary for it, but it's also specific to the AMR robotics field. So
Mhm.
that can just plug into a chassis or plug into a system and help run that. One of the other things that we've found too is a lot of robotics customers are big on system on module, computer on module. So we have a very wide variety of solutions for that as well. Anything ranging from low power Qualcomm NXP processors all the way up to essentially your high end Intel AMD processors as well. So we have the ability to meet just a wide variety of requirements out there, depending on power usage, performance needs, things along those lines. And again, because we are connected with the top tech companies out there, we can do things like plug an NVIDIA 6000 ADA into it, RTX 6000 ADA into it. We can do other things like Xilinx FPGA cards if necessary. Plug in all a wide variety of GMSL cameras, sensors, et cetera. So we have a lot of the tools that your listeners would need to really essentially build the system that would fit all of their needs. Be able to go into areas that maybe have been difficult in the past, or do functions that have been difficult to accomplish in the past with pre-existing technology, and essentially just kind of drive forward this robotics market as we go. I think
Yeah.
Jensen Huang at NVIDIA GTC, posed on stage with a video behind him of all these different robots, which reminded me of Iron Man 2. But
That was
but
not accidental.
yeah, I'm sure. But it's one of those things of as I was looking at that, I actually recognized a couple of the ones from people that we work with. So and systems that we've worked with in the past. So I mean, we are at the cutting edge there from a robotics standpoint of just making sure that we are developing not the entire robot, but essentially call it the brains and the nervous system of the robot to enable it to function as efficiently as possible while performing at its peak.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks are starting to recognize that this sort of fusion thing that's happening between like the IoT and the sensors and the data collection part of it and the AI algorithmic machine learning analytics and control part of it are coming more and more inside the embedded space. And it sounds like the AFER770 is really recognizing that and trying to make it put itself in the place where it's going to be the all-in-one box for that sort of fusion solution. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. This really is the hub of the system. I mean, just the amount of inputs and outputs that it has in it just really show that with all the different ports and everything. And as you go through and do all the different applications and things, obviously to your point, data collection is critical. This allows it to feed right back into a server on site, whether it's an edge or cloud-based server, and just really make sure that all the data is being gathered, everything's being reported. You can do all the analysis to determine if there's improvements that need to be made on things, and also just being able to measure input, output, all those sorts of things to make sure that the system is running as efficiently as it possibly can. So
Yeah.
for sure, I mean, this thing really does sit in the middle of a lot of different pieces. That's why, I originally called it the brain of it, but the reality of it is it's the nervous system that's taking inputs from the outside, feeding it up into the brain, which is the CPU or GPU, and then that's feeding back out into the rest of it to essentially make the tweaks necessary.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, for sure, it's definitely a central piece to any sort of robotics application anybody can have.
The last piece I wanted to ask you about is the connectivity portion. Obviously, when you're doing all this, you need nearly real-time connectivity for a lot of applications. Is that built in? Is that done via peripheral? How is that being handled?
Yeah, so good question. It's all built in. So you have actually the 4 Ethernet ports right up in the front to start with. But then it also can connect in through wireless and things like that. We try and uh, we prefer, obviously, I think for robotics where you need low latency or really no latency. We want to keep this thing on the edge
Yeah.
versus having it go up to the cloud and bounce down, because while milliseconds don't seem like a lot of time, depending on the function and if it's about to run off of a cliff, you don't want it to have to go off up to the cloud, come back and say, oh, wait, avoid it. Because by that time it's pulled a Wile E. Coyote and, hit the floor.
Yeah.
So, from that standpoint, it is connected. We do want to make sure that it connects into the appropriate servers and on-prem edge servers in particular, to make sure that it's able to feed the data and get responses in real time, versus kind of having to wait for that lag.
Are are you mostly cellular, LPWAN, Wi-Fi 6? What are the protocols that you guys are using?
It's mostly Wi-Fi, but we do have the ability to do LoRaWAN, as well as we do have cards that we can plug in here for cellular as well.
Nice.
So, one of the things we're exploring, and may not quite be there yet, but one of the things that we're very interested in is private 5G. That's something that, as we look at a variety of our customers, with these much larger facilities, Wi-Fi becomes prohibitively expensive and inefficient as you have to spread out across a much larger area. Think of in particular, I didn't really mention this, but mining applications, things like that, in which you're in a very wide area where you may not have the best network penetration, or where Wi-Fi is going to struggle.
Yeah.
Private 5G is one of the things that we're looking at. So we can definitely design something that takes advantage of a private 5G network, or, essentially whatever connectivity somebody wants.
For sure.
So,
yeah, I think, just not to touch back on agriculture, that's another place where sometimes LPWAN sometimes works great, or LoRa, but a lot of people are investigating private 5G and other cellular solutions in those larger agricultural operations too, I think. So that's great. Thank you so much for walking us through this, Jason. It's really interesting piece of kit. I guess my last question is, where can folks who are interested find out more about the AFER770?
Yeah, for sure. So you can go to our website at advantech.com, as I show the glamour shot of the product one more time. And you can look up information there. Please feel free to contact if you know your Advantech rep, contact them. This is also can be available through some of our distribution partners like Avnet and Arrow as well. So reach out to whoever your local rep is, get the conversation going, and we'd be more than happy to sit down and talk with you and design your dream system.
Awesome. And you can find links to that down in the description, or wherever you happen to be viewing this video. Jason, thank you so much for joining me today, and all that incredible insight and background into the AFER770. Folks out there, I really appreciate you for joining us on this episode of Embedded Toolbox. If you've made it this far, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our shows like Dev Kit Weekly, Embedded Insiders, or of course, Embedded Toolbox. That's all the time we have for today. So Jason, I'll thank you again and sign off. I've been Ken Briota, Senior Technology Editor at Embedded Computing Design, and you've all been wonderful. Have a great day. Keep developing.